Welcome to Multifamily Method, a podcast which explores the state of the multifamily real estate market and some of the backgrounds, methodologies, and words of wisdom from some of today's most successful multifamily real estate entrepreneurs nationwide.
Hi, I'm Mike Mosier. Thanks for joining us today. Today, we're going to be interviewing Joséphine Saffert. Josephine is a German native who came to the Nashville, Tennessee area as a D1 track athlete recruit in 2011. As part of making her American dream a reality, she built Sapphire Development Group, a vertically integrated real estate development and investment firm. Her team delivers a one-stop shop experience, from offering off-market deals and developing ground-up multifamily to helping others build and sell real estate portfolios. She is currently working on her first brownfield project in Nashville by developing a former metal plating facility into 32 build-for-rent townhomes. Welcome to the podcast, Josephine.
Yeah, thanks, Mike, for having me on this podcast here. I'm really excited.
So tell me, Josephine, tell me your journey. How did you first get involved in multifamily? Like, what led you to where you are today?
Well, I've had a wild journey. It's really about how much you want to know about it. I'm German. I'm a green card holder here in the U.S. So I actually immigrated as a real estate developer. And I started really organically, single family, 6 years ago, kind of working my way up to getting to more volume, and now, developing in the multifamily horizontal space, so primarily like townhome focused. And so that's really more so over the last 18 months, the case that we've gotten more into that space. I'm really excited about it. But it was really gradually. I think, coming from the single family space, you're hopping kind of all over town, trying to find the next deal. I've started initially with 4 units when I first started developing, and that's how I immigrated here, sponsoring myself. So I've always had like a little bit more like volume on that end from the start with, or to begin with. But now I'm really looking to get to the 75 unit and up development space. I'd love to, develop vertically as well. But given that I've just really started organically and grown the company organically, we're working currently on a 32 unit development, and it just feels more natural. It fits the track record. And so, it's been just really a gradual progression towards that. And I have a finance background. I like larger deals. I think actually, in fact, they're easier. So that's been also a big learning, even with the current development deal that we're working on. And So
that's exciting. Well, there's a lot to unpack right there. So when did you come over from Germany? What brought you to the States? And have you been in Nashville that whole time? Those are my first couple questions for you.
Yeah, that's been a funny journey, actually. So I came initially through sports. So I ran track and field, 400 meters, 400 meter hurdle for D1 university. And so they recruited out of high school. So I came initially 2011, first time to the US, or, moved to the US first time, and really to the Nashville area. So at the time, a university there recruited from Germany. And so I saw Nashville, really fairly early on prior to this, big boom. And that was, as I found out later, very, very important in my entrepreneurial journey. And so that was the first time really coming to the US. And then I had actually left 2012 briefly. I worked a little bit in Asia, traveled, worked in Europe, and then actually came back 2014. And so have seen Nashville sort of in different phases, and always with some kind of time in between, just enough to realize the growth. And so it's been really a journey through sports, creative financing, quite frankly, and then ultimately real estate. So that's enabled me to stay in the U.S.
Oh, that's exciting. Well, I know for a fact that the competitive athletic nature of folks like yourself, D1 track scholarship, yields well to the world of both brokerage that we do, investment sales, as well as development, right? Because it's a very competitive space. That personal drive, the desire to win, I think is really important in that space. Because quite frankly, you're competing for sites, you're competing for capital, you're competing for subs, you're competing for materials, right? So
Yep.
I think it plays out really well in life. Yeah, and having seen Nashville since 2011, you've seen a lot of change for sure, without a doubt. So that's exciting. So you started after college. You started in single family. Did you just find a job, or do you always want to do real estate, or what got your foot in the door to begin?
Yeah, so I actually never worked for a larger developer or anybody else of that matter really in the current space that I'm working in. I actually ended up moving to Manhattan after college and joined a tech startup briefly, and really was able to network in Manhattan, the space of venture capital, private equity, angel investors. Really got the hang of it. Listened to 1,000 pitches, and I briefly because the tech startup, it takes a minute to also materialize. Worked at Hilton Grand Vacations in the timeshare sales business, and so I received the Hilton training. It was very valuable, and at the time, really learned how to sell virtual points. And as a German, and just to give you some background there, in our German culture, the fundraising concept is actually very foreign. So yeah, obviously, from a corporate standpoint, sure, but just like sort of growing up, and we like don't generally understand the fundraising concept. So coming to Manhattan and really learning sort of the ropes of it, and then ultimately also marketing and selling virtual points there for Hilton Grand Vacation was very eye-opening, and was pretty much all that I needed to understand how to basically put deals together, and basically get sort of the early start. So at first, it didn't really have anything to do with real estate. Quite frankly, it was really more from the capital side, which I think was kind of actually a better way to enter, just given my finance background. But I did grow up around real estate in Germany through my father, who's more into interior design space, and I had actually very early on worked sort of as a student assistant in an architecture shop, building the multifamily models, and so. But really saw early on, okay, you could never ever really build what you want to build unless you're on the other side of the coin, and so that's what led me into finance. And so I understood real estate, more so as a tangible pillar of finance, but it was more from the capital side and like understanding this stuff, and then putting that together, with real estate, and then ultimately I had a former business partner that was already, renovating some homes here in Nashville, greater area. And through him, I ended up moving back to Nashville the third time around, and started the first development business, and that really took off very quickly. And ultimately, the reason or how I got into development was more so through the U.S. government, quite frankly. So we initially had really just flipped homes, and we built a multi-million-dollar business very quickly. Because nobody really showed up to auctions, and we were able to take advantage of that opportunity at a time where 2017 Nashville greater area was just kind of taking off. So it's still very early on. There weren't really New York, California funds coming in. It was right pre that time, and so So in my immigration journey, it took 3.5 years to immigrate, and through that, at some point, the U.S. government said, well, you can do $20 million flipping, single family homes, but it doesn't count as a business. And I basically were recycling value. And I said, okay, all right, we're recycling value. So what about new construction? Would that count as as a business for immigration purposes? And basically then, my immigration attorney at the time said, well, you're creating original value on U.S. soil hiring Americans. And so, we were just eyeing with a site for 4 units. And so then ultimately, through that project, I was able to build the company, pivot sort of into that direction, going into new construction. And I immigrated under the basis of building new original value on U.S. soil. And so that's really what was the initial growth, stage, if you will, towards that path. Mm-hmm. And then
That's
I
really
kept running with it.
interesting. Yeah, I did not know that like flipping homes recycling value, for lack of a better term, didn't qualify
Yeah.
for the immigration status. That's really interesting to hear. So it almost propelled you into the new construction space.
Yeah.
Did you find that you enjoyed that better than the fix and flip space?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I'm definitely, excelling more at like larger deals, just given my understanding and background. I worked briefly at M&A, Deloitte as well, Munich. I have more a knack for those type of deals, and honestly, it's more plannable, right? Like I think when you look at value add in general as a strategy, I think it is just not as plannable as new construction is. You get a blank slate, and you know what you're chipping away at, and you can kind of forecast potential problems and overcome them ahead of time. And I think with value add, you kind of more finding out as you go.
Yeah. Well, when you're building it, you know what's behind the walls. When you're doing value add, you're going to discover when you tear that wall open, right? So,
yeah, right.
Okay. So you have, you said at the beginning of the podcast that you've been doing some horizontal build for rent, SFR, call it what you may, a couple different terms out there, development. You're working on, I believe you said, a 32 unit deal right now. Is that in the Nashville metro? Tell us a little bit about what you've got going on there.
Yeah, I'm really excited about this project. It's in the North Nashville area, so right under the Cumberland River belt, and it is actually it's a brownfield site and opportunity zone, designated opportunity zones. And so we acquired this former metal plating facility last year, and are redeveloping it to 32 unit, built to rent townhomes with a downtown view. So really exciting. I think that this will have an immense impact for the neighborhood, just given that it's been a abandoned, manufactured building for several decades actually, and it's just now really ready that all the numbers really work out. Over 5 groups have tried to acquire the site over the last 5 years and could not make the numbers work. It took an immense team from an environmental engineering standpoint to even get through the due diligence phase.
Okay. So was it just a matter of the cleanup was cost prohibitive, so it wouldn't pencil at that point?
Yeah, so it was very difficult to understand the contamination and how far essentially that contamination could reach in terms of cubic yards. And so, as you know, Nashville's been a very hot market. Seller expectations are through the roof, and even still, right, even with a higher interest rate climate, we're still fighting that expectation. And so, during the process of even trying to get this property under contract, and ironically, actually, someone else had the property under contract in between of when we were looking at, but we knew that they most likely couldn't close on it, because it took so much upfront legwork in understanding, okay, how can we mobilize essentially all the teams to even run through a 60-day due diligence period and understand by the end of it, whether we could close or not. And so, so the due diligence phase was initially just 60 days. And for most groups, I mean, it's very tight for such a site to perform phase 1, phase 2, additional, geotech testing, soil borings, and so we were able to perform pretty much all of it within 60 days, but then we needed additional testing done. And that's when we extended 30 days with, hard earnest money. And I think like prior groups were not willing to go that route because they just didn't get, through the phase 2.
Yeah, it'd be hard to do 2 phases of environmental in 60 days. I agree. I can understand why you bought the extra 30. Well, good for you. To the victor go the spoils. Have you started moving dirt yet, or where are you at on that project?
We're waiting right now in the state to fully approve it. We're really close. So just even to demo the existing manufacturer side, we are waiting for the grading permit. So we're getting really close to it, but we're about to start the equity raise here. So
that's excellent. And what made you pick the build to rent for that site?
Given that it is in the opportunity zone, I think it is a great project for that to really attract equity. I think that also just the projection of Nashville as a whole in that area specifically is set out for much appreciation to come. It's really 5 minutes from the new Oracle site, $1 billion campus close to the Amazon site, and just so well positioned for the next 5 to 10 years.
Oh, that's excellent. What we've seen across the country, and CoStar's validated this as well, we typically see about a 30% rent premium for build to rent versus traditional multi. And I guess that's the value the average consumer puts over having their own space, little patch of dirt in the backyard, like no neighbors above them, right? So I'll be interested to see how that works out for y'all, but I have no doubt it'll net out very well in a strong market. So congratulations. So what are your plans for the future? Where do you go from here? So this is a project and a step up, it sounds like. What do you want to do after this?
Yeah, so we're currently eyeing with some sites for a subdivision, really to also fill the pipeline. Currently looking at over 170 units, a little bit further out of just within the sub markets here of Nashville. And really excited for that. Being able to have those phases and sort of that forecast, of the pipeline. But a big topic right now is really trying to innovate more within the multifamily construction world. So I just recently came back from Necker Island and had made some great connections, and also actually was able to network with a few German entrepreneurs, and I think what's really happening sort of on the modular front is really exciting. I think that we need more technology within those multifamily horizontal vertical builds, just to even stay up to date for the next 5 to 10 years. I think we've seen already quite a big shift in sort of what's needed in apartment complexes, right? And even townhome developments, when it comes down to Amazon, which seems so simple. It's it's just a few packages, but it just, so I think, so that's an exciting topic. So I would like to dive in more into that. And that's also the reason why I'm looking for example, a subdivision build, just to be able to gain some more time to be spent on the innovation side.
Yeah, I think efficiency in building materials and process has been a huge need in our space for literally decades, Josephine. I've been excited for some time about modular. It's taken off slower than I thought. I've even seen some stuff on pre-printed single family homes. They're not aesthetically appealing yet, but they're very functional. I saw some stuff going up in Austin. So I'd be interested to see what new technologies and ideas you could bring to the forefront, because we're throwing these things up the way we did 40 years ago, and that just doesn't strike me very efficient. Right.
Yeah, I think that we will see over the next 5 years quite a push towards that innovation and really also the integration of technology in our day-to-day living, as well as just how we think about multifamily construction. I think that we'll see a big shift happening. Yeah.
I agree. I think you're right. I'll be interested to see maybe the new amenities are more around artificial intelligence and access and connectivity than pools and gyms. Time will tell.
Yeah. Okay. And also, I think just general convenience, right? I think when you think about how the packaging is handled, the package delivery is handled, currently it's still very janky, and I think could be solved very nicely going forward.
Yeah, if you build for it from the start, that's smart. So I want to ask you kind of a double-edged question. What are you most excited about, and what are you most worried about? So you can answer whichever one you want first.
Excited as in general, or for us specifically?
Yeah, just excited. Excited for Sapphire Development, I should say, within the context of this conversation.
Yeah. Well, I'm really excited just to continue to grow in that larger urban infill, multifamily development space, and then really integrating more innovation in that field. I think I'm very excited for the next 5 years in tackling that. I think we're well positioned to do so. I mean, as sort of a smaller firm, we currently have like a little bit north over like 30 million assets under development. We're really well positioned to test and make those connections and pilots. And so I'm really excited for that. I just over the last like 2 years, kind of came back out of the ashes from a pretty big legal battle with a former business partner. So Sapphire itself is still fairly young, and I think we have a really exciting pipeline right now, and just really excited to continue to develop and also build the holding base.
Yeah, no, that's exciting. I'm excited for that. What worries you? What's keeping you up at night? As an entrepreneur, there's always 1,000 things that you got to worry about, right? So what's kind of occupying your headspace right now?
I mean, as probably many other developers and investors are currently focused on sort of the next rate hike. I think, the construction loans are definitely at a level that we all could have never forecasted. I think we've had a lot of banking discussions there over the last month, right? I mean, generally always like to have fixed construction loans, like fixed rates. But there were a few variable ones. So looking at like 9.25% of an interest rate is not fun. And so, we've had good contingency. We've really good, with good banking partners, good equity partners. So, but it certainly is a challenge. And I think that we most likely will see one more hike at least, and possibly a pause for Thanksgiving. But, if it does continue, that the Fed will increase the interest rates early sort of next year, I think then we'll see a different dynamic.
Yeah, without a doubt. Sources of capital, specifically on the senior debt side, I'm sure is a concern for all developers. We'll see how many bullets the Fed has left in the chamber. I'm personally of the opinion they're almost out. We've had 2 interesting months. This is August, as the recording of this podcast, June and July, the CPI was pretty good. So we'll see. Yeah. Time will tell, I guess.
Do you believe that we're sort of in a new era there on the inflation side in regards to, do you believe that a 2% is realistic? I'm curious what your take is, since you talk with a lot of people as well.
Yeah, I do think we're in a new era, Josephine. I think a lot of it has to do with monetary policy on the federal level. And that has such impact on the day-to-day. So I think the world is new and different. I also think unemployment that they're chasing is kind of a false narrative, because our population has stabilized. So really we need stronger immigration numbers to have a higher unemployment number, because we don't have the workforce capacity we did 15 years ago. I mean, that's just look at the numbers and look at the baby boomers post-COVID and retirement and stuff. So I do think we're in a new and different world. I suspect rates will stay elevated for quite some time. We can all get used to that though, right? Cap rates can adjust, materials and can adjust. Like the market will adjust to that. It's the moving target that drives us all crazy. And I think we're almost done with that. If I had to bet, we'll see. I might be wrong.
Yeah, time will tell. I'm very interested to see how this is unfolding. Yeah, I do think too we're more towards the tail end, but
yeah, hopefully we'll find out here soon enough. We all like doing deals. So for you as a newer developer in the space, when you're competing for dirt, for projects, for land, do you find it challenging to get your voice heard versus some of the more established institutional players who have transacted with different investment firms in the past and landowners?
I think it depends. I would say that last year I've definitely had here and there some difficulties, but I think I was able to overcome them by just really having a solid team together. And then really also great relationships, within the market and beyond. And I feel very comfortable that at the end of the day, depending on what terms you're presenting, that you can be competitive, no matter whether you're newer or already very established in the space.
That's fair. No, I agree with that. And as your track record grows and you execute on your LOIs, that only helps, right? From a reputation perspective, people know that you're good for your word and you're going to transact, and that really matters to the marketplace.
Yeah. I think as as being German, I'm very direct, and I like to tackle things that are pretty straight up front. So I think it does help. I think overall it just like really depends. Also, I think how you present yourself, right? And I've had like really good deal experience there, and have seen like larger deals.
Yeah, I think we all appreciate people that are direct. Just if the answer is no, that's fine. Just tell me no up front. Don't don't drag me on forever, waste everybody's time, right?
So. But equally, it's really important too to, I think, especially in the Nashville and like in a very hot real estate market, to make known what you do need in order to be able to move forward. I think that is something that we've seen over the last 2-3 years. That's now definitely changed given the economic climate, but. That certain things are just like non-negotiable, and either the seller is also willing to come to a deal or not, and kind of also setting up for that. So
okay, what kind of things are you doing to get your brand out there? Are you really active on social media? Are you doing Google ads? Is it more word of mouth? Like how are you pushing Sapphire Development's image in the community?
Yeah, I'm very active in the community, very active with Urban Land Institute, ULI, WLI, and then also here some local groups on the board of an investor group here that spans pretty wide, and very active on Instagram. Just really looking to continue to make those relationships. I think that real estate just in general, no matter how big it is, it's still people business backed by numbers. And so, I think the relationships really matter, and then also going sort of outside of the state and networking. I still have a pretty good New York network, and just really seeking the groups that are also looking to make a difference.
I think those New York connections you spoke about earlier, Manhattan was a great way to start the journey. Why not start at the center of capital for the entire country, right? And then go to build it. So many folks try to start with the project and then go hunt down the capital. And I think that's a much harder path to go down. Yeah.
I think you have to understand where, obviously where's the capital coming from, and we plug into family offices, and they're family offices that really like to specialize actually in female developers, just for diversification. So it's very, very interesting that I've learned over the past years, and I think there's also a need to kind of think slightly different, right? Like I think that. Definitely women develop somewhat differently than men, and it's just a unique, a position, I think, to be in the space.
Well, that's exciting, and one of the reasons we loved having you here on the podcast, Josephine, is this is kind of our Rising Stars series. And not only do you have a cool story having immigrated and played college athletics and everything else, but also being a female developer in a very male-dominated space. So I would be curious to hear your perspective on how that's gone so far and what you see as the opportunities because it's a different world for you, right?
Yeah, I think it's always been good. I mean, I know sometimes I actually just spoke at a luncheon 2 weeks ago, and a question, it was a women luncheon. The question was, do I think that it's tougher as a woman? And honestly, no, I think it's actually really more an asset than it is a liability. Of course you stand out, right? But I think, it just brings some diversity to the table, and just brings up really interesting conversations. And so I've never had like really truly like a disadvantage per se. Of course, sometimes doing business in the South, you have to overcome here and there some guys, but at the end of the day, a deal is a deal, and I think it all, again, boils down to also what team you have and how you position yourself. And then I think, being foreign maybe also kind of helps and just, sparks the overall like interest in the journey and then in doing business.
No, that's exciting. I love your perspective. It's very positive. We have a business coach. He's helped me a lot personally. His name is Robert Fish. And he always says, Mike, it's better to be unique than the best. So like you said, to stand out is a good thing in the world of business. If you're in a crowded space and you're different, people are like, that's cool. Like, what's she up to over there? Maybe I should partner with her on a deal. So that's a good thing. That's to your advantage.
I think also like a lot of times, like, I mean, being underestimated is actually, I think, more an advantage than it's a disadvantage. So, I think it's been a very fascinating journey so far, and but I've always found really good support, and especially also from your group. So Quentin also has been always awesome. I've enjoyed working with your group.
That's awesome. Well, we're glad to hear. We're thrilled to work alongside you as well. Anything else you wanted to cover today? I think that pretty much covers the journey and what you've been working on from my perspective. No,
I think we covered a lot. Yeah. Thank you so much, Mike.
Thank you. Thank you for your time. You're gracious beyond the telling, as my old pastor used to say. I love it. Thanks.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for listening to Multifamily Method. If you enjoyed today's episode, please give us a rating and a review on Apple Podcasts. It helps our podcast get discovered by other savvy investors like yourself. Subscribe to Multifamily Method for free on your podcast platform of choice. Find out more about Capstone Companies at capstone-companies.com. Multifamily Method is executive produced by Capstone Companies. Audio production for the podcast provided by Andy Go of Gojo Studios, and video production by Yash Mystery of Mystery Projects.